Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into the fascinating world of Indian culture.
Buckle up. It's a journey through thousands of years of tradition, art, food, you name it, all those incredible threads weaving together.
Definitely sounds like a deep dive. So when you think about Indian culture, what's the first thing that jumps out at you?
I mean, the history, right? It's mind-blowing. We're talking millennia of influences shaping this culture. You've got the Dharmic religions, of course, but then layer on centuries of interaction with so many different groups and the connections to East and Southeast Asia.
It's hard to even wrap your head around all that. So much history. How does that actually play out in modern-day India? What would we see?
Well, it's everywhere. Let's take family, for example. You still see the traditional joint family system a lot.
Multiple generations all living together.
Exactly, but there's a definite shift happening, especially in cities, towards smaller families, like just parents and kids.
Makes sense, I guess. Cities tend to pull people in different directions. What's causing that shift, do you think?
It's a lot of things. The economy, for one. Cities have more job opportunities, so younger people move away from their extended families. Plus, lifestyles are changing, aspirations are different.
It's like tradition bumping up against modern life.
No.
So how does that changing family structure affect things like marriage?
Great question. Arranged marriages have been the norm forever, but we're seeing a rise in what they call love marriages.
So people choosing their own partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in urban areas. It's about changing social norms, and women especially having more say in their lives.
It's really interesting to see those changes happening. What about traditions like dowry? Do those come into play with this shift in marriage?
It definitely adds a whole other layer. Dowry historically was about a woman getting her share of the family wealth when she got married.
Right.
But it's important to remember that Indian law, since 1956, has guaranteed equal inheritance rights for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, whether there's a will or not.
So things are becoming more equal.
Definitely moving in that direction. Plus, more people are using legal wills for inheritance, which, modernizes things.
It's like this constant push and pull between tradition and change. Super fascinating.
Ew.
Speaking of traditions, can we talk festivals? Indian festivals are famous for their color and energy.
Oh, get ready for it. It's a whole explosion of colors and celebration. You've got the big national holidays, of course. Independence Day, Republic Day, Gandhi Jayanti. Those are huge GE. Everyone gets into it.
Those are the ones that really unite the whole country. But what about the religious festivals? Those seem like they're really at the heart of Indian culture.
Oh, there are so many. Diwali, the Festival of Lights, is a big one, celebrated by Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, even Jains. Then there's Holi, the Festival of Colors, Durga Puja in Eastern India. That one's amazing with all the decorations and performances. And of course, you can't forget Eid ul Fitr, the Muslim holiday, plus all the harvest festivals, the regional fairs. It's like a never-ending party.
Makes me want to go experience them all myself. So if we're talking about cultural nuances, what about everyday life in India? Are there things we should know about customs or etiquette?
Most people have heard of Namaste, the traditional greeting.
Yeah, that's a classic.
But there's so much more to it. Depending on where you are, who you're with, you might see people bowing, touching feet as a sign of respect.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And different phrases in different languages. It really shows you just how diverse India is, even within its own borders.
So many layers.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I'm curious about the role of animals in Indian culture. Anything significant there?
Big time. This is where things get interesting. It's a mix of deep reverence and practicality all at once. Take the cow, for instance. In Hinduism, it's sacred.
Symbol of peace, nonviolence, all that.
Exactly. It's also seen as a provider of life, which is why, there's such a strong taboo against eating beef among Hindus and Jains.
That makes sense. But I remember reading that India is one of the world's biggest producers and consumers of cattle livestock meat. How does that work?
That's the interesting part. It throws a lot of people off. While the cow is super respected, India's got a huge population with different needs and budgets. The beef they eat mostly comes from water buffalo, not the zebu cows that are considered sacred. So it's this complex mix of beliefs, economics, and what's actually practical.
Makes you realize you can't make assumptions about a culture as complex as India's. Speaking of which, let's talk food. It's everywhere these days, and I'm dying to know what makes it so special.
Oh yeah, get ready for a flavor explosion. Indian cuisine is all about diversity. It's not just one thing, it's a whole bunch of regional styles. You've got the North with their creamy curries, the South, famous for coconut and tamarind. Then there's East, West, Northeast, all with their own personalities.
It's mind-blowing how many different flavors and techniques there are. I always love the way they use spices and herbs in Indian cooking. It's like an art form.
You got it. Indian chefs are masters of blending those spices and herbs. And here's a fun fact. Harold McGee, the famous food scientist, actually praised India for how creatively they use milk in their cooking.
Really?
Yeah. It's not all just heat and spice. Milk adds this balance, this richness to a lot of dishes.
I never knew that. It makes you want to explore Indian food even more. Okay, from food to fashion, what are some of the traditional clothing styles we'd see in India?
Picture this vibrant colors, intricate designs, and a whole rainbow of styles. Everything's influenced by local culture, geography, even the weather. For draped garments, you've got the sari, the classic for women, and for men, the dhoti.
Those are definitely iconic. What about stitched clothing?
Oh, tons. For women, the salwar kameez is super popular. It's comfy, stylish, and often comes with a dupatta, a long scarf. And for men, there's the kurta, a kind of tunic, can be dressed up or down.
It's amazing how clothes can reflect so much about where you're from and what you believe. Now, changing gears a bit, what about the Sanskrit language? It seems like it has a lot of historical importance.
Sanskrit is a treasure trove. It's one of the oldest Indo-Aryan languages, and it played a huge role in the development of something called comparative philology.
Comparative what now?
It's basically studying how languages relate to each other. You might be surprised to know that Sanskrit has deep connections to European languages. English, German, French, they all have roots in Sanskrit.
Wow, that's wild. It really shows how connected we all are, even across continents and cultures.
Exactly. And speaking of connections, why don't we move on to Indian epics and literature next?
Lead the way. I'm ready for some epic storytelling.
Okay, get ready to be transported.
Yeah.
The Mahabharata and the Ramayana, these are the two big ones. Monumental works of literature that have shaped Indian culture for centuries.
I've heard the names, but I don't really know much about them. Why are they so important?
They're way more than just stories. It's like they're woven together with mythology, philosophy, history, morals, you name it. And they've been reinterpreted in all sorts of ways. Dance, drama, paintings, sculptures. They still speak to people today, showing us something about what it means to be human, how complex life is.
Sounds like they offer a real glimpse into the soul of Indian culture. Definitely adding those to my reading list. Okay, now I'm really excited to talk about performing arts. Dance, music, all that good stuff. What's the scene like in India?
Get ready for a whirlwind of movement and emotion. India has 8 classical dance forms officially recognized by their National Academy of Music, Dance, and Drama. Each one tells a story through these intricate movements, gestures, expressions. It's powerful stuff.
I've heard of some, like Bharatanatyam and Kathak, but I'd love to know the whole list.
Absolutely. You've got Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, Kuchipudi, Yakshagana, Manipuri, and Odissi. Each one is unique, with its own style, vocabulary, drawing inspiration from mythology, history, nature, the whole works.
It's amazing that each region has developed its own distinct dance tradition. What about folk dances? I bet there's a rich history there too.
Oh, you bet. Folk dances are huge in India. Each region has its own styles, often tied to local customs or festivals. They're bursting with energy and really capture the spirit of different communities.
It seems like every corner of Indian culture is bursting with artistic expression, from these ancient epics to the way they celebrate everyday life. I've already learned so much from this deep dive.
And we're just getting started. We haven't even touched on visual arts, architecture, sports, martial arts, or the world of Indian cinema.
I can't wait to keep exploring. We'll be back with more fascinating insights into Indian culture in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our Indian culture adventure, ready to keep exploring.
Definitely. Last time we touched on dance, but what about Indian theater? It seems like there's a whole world of theatrical expression to uncover there.
Oh, absolutely. It's deeply connected to their music, dance, and storytelling tradition. You know, they actually have ancient Sanskrit texts like the Natya Shastra that lay out a whole framework for theatrical performance.
Really? What kind of stuff does it talk about?
All about gestures, expressions, conveying emotions through movement. It's fascinating how those ancient principles still influence performing arts in India today.
So are there any particular types of theater or traditions that really stand out?
There's one called Kutiyattam from Kerala. It's actually recognized by UNESCO as a, hold on, let me get this right, masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity.
Wow, that's quite a title.
It's considered the only surviving form of ancient Sanskrit theater. We're talking like from the very beginning of the Common Era. It follows the Natya Shastra super closely, so it gives you a real glimpse into those ancient theatrical traditions.
That's incredible. To think that this art form has been passed down for centuries is mind-blowing. What about other forms of performance, like puppetry? I've always found puppetry so fascinating.
Oh, India has a vibrant puppetry scene. Different regions have their own styles. Kathputli is a famous one. It's string puppetry from Rajasthan.
I've seen pictures. Those puppets are gorgeous. So intricate and colorful.
They really are works of art, and they bring stories to life in such a captivating way. But string puppets aren't the only kind in India. You've also got rod puppets.
Oh, right, like the ones they control from below.
Exactly, those are often bigger. And then there are glove puppets too. Each type has its own techniques and style, adding to the richness and diversity.
It's amazing how these traditions have evolved in different parts of the country. What about shadow puppetry? I've heard that's a big deal in India.
Oh, huge, GE. It's an ancient art form, goes back centuries. It's often performed at those Hindu temple festivals we talked about earlier. They use these intricately crafted leather puppets to project shadows onto a screen. It's super mesmerizing to watch.
I bet, especially in that festival atmosphere.
Yeah.
What kinds of stories do they usually tell with shadow puppets?
You'll often see the epic tales, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata.
Of course.
Yeah.
Those seem to be woven into every aspect of Indian culture.
They really are. Those timeless stories of heroes, gods, epic battles, they still resonate with people today, although it's interesting how the details, the interpretations, can vary from region to region.
Yeah, adds another layer of complexity to it all. Okay, so we've got these epic tales, we've got dance, we've got puppetry. What about painting traditions in India?
Oh, Indian painting. Talk about a visual feast. You've got everything from intricate Mughal miniatures to vibrant folk art. So much variety and expression, it's hard to even know where to start.
I'm especially curious about the Mughal miniatures. What makes them so unique?
Detail, my friend, detail. And the colors. They're known for depicting courtly life, historical events, scenes from literature. They used fine brushes and pigments made from natural materials.
So like real craftsmanship.
The best of the best. The result is just breathtaking. So much skill and artistry went into those pieces.
I've also seen pictures of those amazing murals in the Ajanta caves. Are those a specific style too?
The Ajanta caves are a whole other level of amazing. They date back to the 2nd century BCE. The murals inside tell stories from the Buddha's life and Buddhist literature. The figures are so expressive, the lines so fluid, and the colors, all natural pigments blending together beautifully.
They sound like a must-see for anyone interested in Indian art. All right, let's move on to sculpture. What kind of sculptural traditions does India have?
Buckle up, because we're going from monumental stone carvings to intricate bronze castings. Lots of these sculptures have religious significance, depicting Hindu deities, Buddhist figures, Jain Tirthankaras. They're all over the place, literally.
I've seen those incredible temple carvings, like the ones at Khajuraho. They're absolutely mind-blowing.
The Khajuraho temples are a masterpiece of intricate carving. Built between the 10th and 12th centuries, they showcase scenes from mythology, court life, even everyday activities.
It's like a window into the past.
Exactly. They give you a real sense of the social and cultural life of that era. You can really see the skill and vision of the artists who created them.
It boggles the mind to think about the dedication and craftsmanship. What about bronze sculptures?
Oh, the bronze sculptures, especially from the Chola period, are amazing. They're known for their elegance and technical mastery.
I've seen some in museums. They're so detailed and expressive.
The way they captured the human form, the emotions, truly remarkable. The Chola bronzes are considered some of the finest examples of Indian sculpture.
Wow, we've covered so much ground. Paintings, sculptures. It's clear that Indian art is a beautiful blend of spirituality, artistry, and cultural expression. What else is there to explore in this world?
Well, we can't talk about Indian art without mentioning architecture. That's another whole realm of artistic brilliance.
Oh, I'm definitely intrigued by Indian architecture. A country with such a long history must have some incredible architectural wonders. What are some of the different styles we might see?
You're in for a treat. We're talking ancient temples, stupas, majestic palaces, forts. It's a whirlwind of styles, each influenced by different historical periods, regional traditions, and religious beliefs.
Well, we have to talk about the Taj Mahal, right? That's probably the most famous example of Indian architecture.
Of course. The Taj Mahal is an icon for a reason. It's a true architectural marvel. Built by Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan as a tribute to his wife, Mumtaz Mahal, it's considered a masterpiece of Mughal architecture.
Such a romantic story behind it, too.
It truly is. And the design itself is breathtaking. perfectly symmetrical with those intricate marble inlays and stunning calligraphy. It's no wonder it's a wonder of the world.
I'm already adding it to my travel bucket list.
Yeah.
What about other architectural styles? Like what would we see in South India?
South Indian temples are a sight to behold, especially those built during the Chola and Vijayanagar empires. You'll see these towering gopurams, which are gateways, intricately carved pillars, and vast inner sanctums.
It sounds massive.
They are. These temple complexes are really a testament to the architectural genius and religious devotion of those times.
The scale and complexity of it all. It's hard to imagine. So we've got Mughal architecture, South Indian temples. What about Buddhist architecture in India?
Buddhist architecture. That introduced a very distinct style. Think stupas, those dome-shaped structures that hold relics of the Buddha.
Oh, like the great stupa at Sanchi.
That's a famous one. Stupas are important pilgrimage sites and really show how Buddhism spread throughout India and beyond.
It's amazing how architecture can reflect history, culture, and spiritual beliefs in such a tangible way. I feel like we've covered so much already.
We have. But there's still more to come. We haven't even touched on the world of Indian sports and martial arts.
Okay, I'm ready to get active. What are some of the traditional sports and martial arts that have shaped Indian culture? All right, let's jump into the world of Indian sports and martial arts. Where do we even begin?
Well, you can't talk about sports in India without mentioning cricket. It's not just a game, it's a national passion.
Yeah, I've heard it's huge EE over there.
Huge EE is an understatement. Millions of fans, crazy about the national team, the domestic leagues. It's a whole other level of fandom.
So has India been successful on the international cricket scene?
Oh, big time. They've won multiple World Cups, other big tournaments. They're a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
That's impressive. What about other sports? Is it all cricket all the time?
Cricket's definitely king, but there's room for other sports, too. Football, or soccer as some call it, has a pretty big following, especially in certain states like West Bengal, Kerala, Goa.
Makes sense. Football's global. What about hockey? I know that used to be really popular in India.
Hockey's got a special place in their history. It might not be as popular as cricket or football now, but the Indian national team dominated the sport for years, won a ton of Olympic gold medals. It's a sport that brings back a lot of national pride.
It's fascinating how sports can be so tied to national identity. Are there any traditional Indian sports that are still popular?
Definitely. Kabaddi is one that comes to mind. It's a contact sport that goes way back in India. They even have professional leagues now, huge crowds.
I've seen Kabaddi on TV. It looks so intense.
It's a real workout, fast-paced, physically demanding. You need strength, agility, and good strategy to play.
I can imagine. Okay, let's talk martial arts. Does India have a strong martial arts tradition?
Oh yeah, it's super rich and diverse, lots of different forms, many connected to spiritual practices and self-defense techniques, centuries of development.
That's so cool. Any particular styles that stand out?
One of the most famous is Kalari Payattu from Kerala. It's considered one of the oldest martial art forms in India.
I've seen videos. The movements are incredible. So fluid and precise.
It's all about flexibility, agility, and using weapons like swords, staffs, daggers. It's pretty intense.
Wow. Are there other traditional styles besides Kalari Payattu?
Tons. Silambam from Tamil Nadu, that one uses staffs and other weapons. It's all about skill and fast-paced combat. Then you've got Gatka, a Sikh martial art, more about swordsmanship and combat skills, often performed ceremonially. It's a real display of skill and bravery.
It's amazing how they blend physical skill with those cultural and spiritual elements. It gives you a real glimpse into the values and traditions that shape Indian society.
Absolutely. And speaking of cultural traditions, we can't wrap this up without talking about Bollywood.
Oh yes, Bollywood time. What makes it so different from other film industries?
Bollywood's based in Mumbai, and it churns out hundreds of films every year. It's the biggest film industry in India. Think colorful visuals, epic song and dance numbers, storylines that are, well, let's just say dramatic.
I love those over-the-top Bollywood storylines.
Yeah.
Romance, action, comedy, music. It's all in there.
Exactly. It's a whole experience. It's like being transported to another world.
Totally agree. Are there other film industries in India beside Bollywood?
Definitely. India has a vibrant regional cinema scene, films in different languages, catering to different audiences. You got Tollywood, Collywood, Mollywood. Each one reflects the unique culture and storytelling of that region.
So much creativity. It's incredible how film can be such a powerful way to express culture and entertain people. This deep dive has honestly blown my mind. Indian culture is just so vast and vibrant.
And remember, we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn, to appreciate.
I'm already feeling inspired to dive in deeper. As we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners?
The biggest takeaway: Indian culture is a living, breathing thing. It's always evolving, blending ancient traditions with modern influences, shaped by history, by diverse communities, by its place in the world today. It's a culture that honors its past while embracing the future, a mix of continuity and change, tradition and innovation, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for taking us on this incredible journey through Indian culture. I hope everyone listening is feeling as inspired as I am to keep learning and exploring.